I don't know.
Hi there. Remember us from the bowling alley?
Laura.
She told me she got a lot of good relatives from watching Hawaii. Why is that up in charge?
Hi, Marion. I didn't know if it was in order or.
Okay.
I guess it doesn't matter. They can call her name.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sit next to Agnes. Okay.
Yes.
Good, how are you?
Did somebody text you already?
Yes. Hate me around here. What's going on?
Is that going to look bad?
Fine, it's over.
They last so long.
So that was when you get them, they just started the fire. Stress usually brings them out.
I'm from Atlanta. Yeah? Well, live up in Woodstock.
Here's our prayer for
Yeah? Ivan, okay. I got a production company. And I've been doing production
What if we just tape over this way, all from the back?
She's saying the prayer too.
You hold the pen over there.
It's right there.
Right. You're up on Facebook. Hey, how you doing? Hey, good seeing Luke. We work together in the CNN stuff. I'm here on the live series, through that I sent it to,
Joe, will you like get some pieces, small pieces of tape? We're gonna have to keep this in the back.
right now I'm trying to
Not as long as that piece, but
be on a YouTube channel with after the event.
Longer than that, though, maybe. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Does it look even? Oh, that's really good. A couple more like that. Even? Thank you. The last thing we want is for the sign to blow off too, right? Good. All right, one. Yeah, I'll take a couple more. So I'm going to run one across the whole top. Oh, thank you so much. And then, could I have one more even longer? I've been at enough events where the signs have fallen down, and that looks really tacky.
okay, look.
And I thank you for that. Okay?
Okay, let me move. Let me get the chemical.
Now, can we make sure that these are in the right order as you go through?
I already did.
The one they printed in.
But if you want to double, I've already done that, but that's okay. Okay, look. I'll read them. Kellyanne, Sebastian, Steve, Michelle Root, Larry Buddy Carter,
Is he here? Everyone's here?
Cindy,
Scalf?
yep, And then now we're gonna grab Tim Foley, which
Okay,
is.
do you have a pen by any chance?
Stay right here. Stay right here. So then we're gonna put Tim Foley because
Oh,
we're
okay.
changing the order.
Okay,
And then we're gonna go with Arlene,
okay, good.
Sheriff Jenkins,
Okay,
Mark Lamb,
Sheriff Lamb, okay.
Scalise, I spelled wrong.
It's okay. I know who he is.
Marla Wolf,
Okay,
Sharon Miller,
Agnes.
Gibney,
okay,
Biggs,
okay.
Arpaio,
Sheriff Joe, okay,
Smith,
okay.
Hacking,
Hacking, good.
Kathy Hall.
No,
Oh,
Cotton's
he's
gone.
coming. Yeah, he's at the hearing.
Yeah, so he's not coming. Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured that.
Yeah.
Vicky,
Yep.
and then we have
Laura.
Good.
And she
Is
couldn't make it.
Okay, so that's it. And then I'll lead with this.
Do you have me in, Laura Wilkerson? Sorry, because I didn't see a name
Yep.
or anything. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Okay, guys, we need to get going.
Okay, gotcha.
What is it? Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
We actually were just going to put him up on here as the speakers come up to speak. So
When this is at a smaller base, that's when they hold and support, because those aren't wide enough. So let
put
me
it down.
let me make a bigger base.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I can do that.
yeah, I'm not even sure. Who
Okay,
put it
we need to
on. I
get
need
everybody.
A garbage can.
Oh, we were like cheering them on. I don't know if they play it. We were like clapping.
Oh man, it was crazy.
Yeah, games are on the. Just in case of trouble, you doing great work. John Static.
Pull the names off.
Come sit right here, okay? Sheriff Joe, he can sit right in the front row there.
Follow the lady in purple. You gotta
Yes, perfect. What, do you want him back up here? Okay, then, okay. I know. So let's go. Where's PJ? Okay, we're ready. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. If we can have your attention, please. My name is PJ Schrantz. I'm emceeing this very, very important rally. We're going to start the rally with a prayer, an opening prayer. And it's going to be spoken by Misty Scooby. Misty has a Marine. She's a mother of 10, okay, which is perfectly fitting. She has a Marine, someone serving in the Army. Her mom, Elaine Hackett, a dear friend of mine, his grandmom, mom of Misty's, and a genuine great mom. If we could, Misty, if we could open with prayer. Thank you.
Please bow your head. Almighty God and Father, we are gathered here today from areas far and wide, brought together by a single commonality, that of being grieving families of dear loved ones who were taken far too soon and without what we continuously question, a conceivable reason. Reasons that we can not only fathom, but reasons that are so often overwhelm us with immense anger, discord, and extreme sadness, because the sheer pain of our loved one's loss is far too much for our human hearts to bear. We ask humbly today in prayerful unison that you, Almighty God, bestow on each of us a multitude of graces, graces that will greatly suffice on those days when all our strength is tested, all our hope is lost, and our intense anger and that suffocating hurt we feel ravages us from within. On the days when our faith is tested beyond measure, fill us. When we want to hate, remind us of your endless, infinite love. When we ache and our hearts feel as if they can't hurt anymore, remind us that each day we feel further from our loved ones are simply days closer to being reunited again with them. God, take our sorrows, our hurt, our anger, our daily struggles, and envelop in us your omnipotent wisdom to strive daily for direction. You alone can provide all that we need for salvation and eternity. We ask that you bless abundantly our President, Donald Trump, our Vice President, Mike Pence, and all of our lawmakers, that they may always choose the good when it comes to your holy will. May they never err in judgment when it comes to the protection and respect for the people of our great nation. Almighty God, we ask that you embrace all the angel families gathered here today and fill their hearts and minds with dedication and purpose. Their grieving hearts hurt the most, and only your infinite love can fill the emptiness where once their loved ones filled. Take away their despair and renew it with immense hope. Finally, dear God, it was you who taught us the Lord's Prayer, which states that we are to forgive those who trespass against us. We ask that you give us the graces to mend our unforgiving hearts. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Misty. Thank you very much. We're going to have the national anthem performed by Christy Gibson right now. Christy?
Please stand and join me in singing our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'd like to welcome all the angel families and all the attendees today. I'd like to thank the police departments, sheriffs, ICE, Border Patrol, our veterans, our first responders. I'd like to say thank you to all of the speakers in advance. We have an A-list of speakers, passionate speakers, speakers that take action. I'd like to thank all the conservative media in the audience. These messages and these stories need to be told, and they need to be shown to the masses. Your work is needed and appreciated. I'd like to just mention the Angel Family's website right now, and it's www.angelfamilies.com. This issue is very important. You can go to the site and donate, because their cause is bold, and there's a lot of pain here, and there's a lot of motivation. I support them 100%, and I hope everyone else does as well. Our first speaker, I'm very proud to announce, Mrs. Kellyanne Conway. She's an American pollster, political consultant, pundit, she's a rock star, serving as special counsel to the President of the United States. President Trump's campaign manager, first and only female to win a presidential election, by the way. Just so you know, Misty, who said the prayer, and her mom, Elaine, they're friends of Kellyanne's, and Kellyanne's a mom, and a wonderful person, a genuine person, someone who cares. Okay. She has previously held roles as campaign manager, strategist in the Republican Party, and was formerly president and CEO of the polling company. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kellyanne Conway.
thank you so very much for that warm introduction, and I thank you all for being here today and for your enduring commitment to keeping alive the memories of those we have lost to violence, and so that your pain will never be in vain, for channeling that grief into very personal resolve. This is a very personal commitment from me because I met many of you on the campaign trail, and candidate Trump then promised you that you would never be forgotten, that you are not nameless and faceless. I've seen you in media reports be put in quotes, so-called angel mom, so-called angel dad, so-called. You're not so-called. You're real, you're here, you're present. I'd like you to stand so we can see who you are, if you feel comfortable doing that. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And for all those who have suffered the same and choose not to be here, you always remain in our prayers as well. Together we're fighting to make sure that no other American family ever suffers the loss that you have suffered because of Washington's refusal to secure our borders and our communities. It is my honor to be at an event that will feature so many of our wonderful allies in Congress, including Senator Tom Cotton, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, Representatives Andy Biggs, Buddy Carter, and Steve King. I am also proud to be here with many of those who have stood watch and truly deserve the titles brave and courageous. Those including Tim Foley of the Arizona border, Recon, Sheriff Mark Lamb, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Oh, somebody has a phone call. That's all right. But most of all, on behalf of President Trump and our administration, it's my honor, really, to stand by our angel family, literally stand with you today. President Trump will always stand by you and will never ever forget you and the attention that you are trying to bring to these issues. Each and every one of you has incredible strength, and I truly admire that, and an unwavering devotion to remember your loved ones and tell the world what happened to them. You have faced pain and heartache of being permanently separated from your loved ones, but you didn't let that pain defeat you. You honor their memories every time you courageously tell your stories, and you will not be silenced, and we will make sure you're not silenced. The crimes committed against them are stories many in the media refuse to hear. Maybe they'll listen today, they're here. And many of the left-wing politicians otherwise so happy to preen in front of the cameras, but refuse to give you the same dignity. You will never be silenced, and your loved ones will never be forgotten. Here's the truth. Open borders lead to massive crime. And massive crime that is totally avoidable. So, this administration continues to try to abolish ISIS. And now we have this new movement to try to abolish ICE. Think of how backward and ridiculous and outrageous and un-American that truly is. Over the last year, the interior of our country has witnessed our brave men and women of ICE arrest over 127,000 criminal aliens, including those charged or convicted of 80,000 DUIs, 12,000 sex crimes, and 1,800 homicides. Open borders also allow poison to come into our country. Around 93% of the heroin consumed in this country is grown in Mexico and smuggled across our southern border. This heroin is fueling a crisis of addiction that is killing our people and destroying our communities. The estimated cost of this death and destruction is over $200 billion each year. A wall built across our southern border will pay for itself many times over just by stopping a fraction of the illegal drug trade that is killing tens of thousands of Americans each year. Advocates of open borders know that these numbers just don't add up, especially as the crime and drugs start to seep into our more privileged communities, many of which they represent. Only 10 miles from where we stand right now, a place I used to live for many years, Fairfax County, Virginia. By some accounts, the third wealthiest county in our country. Gangs like MS-13 are growing and exploiting unaccompanied immigrant minors at such a clip that the Fairfax County Chief of Police said the, quote, gang issue is out of control. Homicides are up, assaults are up, Drug use is up. Victims the age of high school students are being stabbed, mutilated, and buried in shallow graves next to middle school. All of these crimes are 100% preventable and would happen less if the politicians behind me would do their jobs and bring safety and security to this nation. The American people, all of you, your loved ones, now gone, are entitled to safe schools, safe streets, safe communities. Every American mother deserves to send her child off to school knowing that that child will come home the same day safely. Every American mom and dad deserves to have their kids drive on roads that are free from drunk drivers, to walk in their own neighborhoods without fear. We now have a president, finally, that shares your priorities, to whom you are not invisible, and to whom you matter deeply. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California recently authored open border legislation that would encourage child trafficking and effectively prevent us from arresting illegal aliens caught within 100 miles of the border. It seems that every single person that shares her political affiliation in the Senate also shares her support of that bill. Think about that. People need to hear that. People running for office this year, for governor, to lead, to be the chief executive of their respective states, are for the following. The person running for governor of California, the Democratic candidate running for governor of California, wants to give universal taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens in that state. In Maryland, the Democratic candidate for governor wants to give free college tuition to to illegal aliens. And in Florida, the Democratic candidate for governor wants to abolish ICE enforcement altogether. People need to know this. If they're proud of those platforms, then we ought to fill up the time in the media with it. All of these radical policies have one thing in common. They will encourage greater illegal immigration, further undermine our nation's sovereignty, and expose us to vulnerabilities within our communities. In many places, elected officials won't even act against known criminals once they learn they are illegal aliens. That's just an incredible statistic. Last year alone, sanctuary jurisdictions across this country released nearly 8,000 criminal aliens back to our communities. You have your personal stories to tell, but I want to tell one that doesn't get any coverage. Probably won't today either. Back in 2014, one of the illegal aliens released by Philadelphia, the city closest to my place of birth, Camden, New Jersey, was Juan Ramon Vasquez. He had previously been deported in 2009. 5 years later, he was arrested in Philadelphia, but the city refused to turn him over to ICE, and instead they released him back into the communities. What happened next? He raped a child. Where is that child's sanctuary? Where are her rights? Where's her protection? Who in law enforcement, federally or locally, was looking out for her? Later, when a court ruled Philadelphia could remain a sanctuary city, the Democratic mayor there, Jim Kenney, did some goofy dance you've all seen on video. And he literally danced for joy, bragging about it. That man dances on the shattered lives of Philadelphians and American children, and on the graves of your loved ones. Free to meet with you? Are you invisible to him? Is your grief not real? The Trump administration believes American cities should be sanctuaries for law-abiding Americans, not criminal aliens. Any elected official who puts the interests of criminal aliens above American citizens should be held to account. You want to talk about being unfit to hold office? There's an example. I promise every single one of you that President Trump will always stand with our angel families and defend your honor and the honor of your loved ones. He said on the campaign trail, he's met with you since he was president several times. We're in close contact with you. He made history, really, by being the first presidential candidate, and indeed president, to recognize angel families and ICE heroes in a State of the Union address and welcoming me there as well. Wanted the whole world indeed to hear. It didn't get a lot of applause from one side of the aisle, but that doesn't matter. We're not here for applause. We're here to do the right thing. Our president created the Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office, or VOICE, to make sure victims of illegal immigrant crime are heard. You are the voice, and that is the voice. As we stand here today next to the Capitol building, we call on Congress to defend the American people and support this administration's immigration priorities. We must stop sanctuary cities. We must end catching and releasing into the interior. We must pass Kate's Law. And we must build the wall and secure our border once and for all. Thank you again to every single Angel family here and those who choose not to be here for your courage and to share your stories and tell the people the truth. Together, we will keep on fighting until America is safe once again. Thank you for your courage. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Kellyanne. Right before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to quickly qualify myself. My name is PJ Schrantz. I'm an Army veteran. I'm a retired New York City fireman. I was at Ground Zero on 9/11. I'm a family member of fallen SEAL Team 6 hero Jason Workman. I'm a Day One Trump supporter. But the reason I'm qualified for this is I lost my 7-year-old son. Not to an illegal alien violence, but I know the pain. I know your pain. I know your pain. We need to take action. I'm all about action. I'm here for you. Anything I can do. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lobbyist. So I'm going to speak my truth. A wall must be built. We must have vetting systems set in place that are strict. Our borders are a sieve. We have brave sheriffs, brave border patrol, brave ICE agents, brave police departments. A lot of them, their hands are tied. We must eliminate sanctuary cities. This must be done. If there are politicians that are not on board, they must be voted out of office. For me, for the Angel families, our loved ones are not coming back. I don't want to hear about a small percentage. It's a small percentage. Hadn't any of them been here, we would not be here. Anyway, without further ado, thank you for listening to that. I needed to get that. Our next speaker, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, is another rock star. Intellect off the chart. But what I love about Sebastian Gorka is his common sense, teamed with his intellect. Sebastian Gorka is an intelligence analyst who was deputy assistant to the United States President Donald J. Trump in 2017. He resigned because he believed White House officials were undermining the Make America Great platform. He's currently a Fox News contributor. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a distinct honor for me to be here today to address you. I really cannot add anything truly substantive to the grief and to the message that you see borne witness to here and to the concrete examples that you just heard from Kellyanne. So I'll just take a very short amount of your time to perhaps give a slightly different perspective from me, because I'm a legal immigrant to the United States. I chose this country, and perhaps that gives me a specific perspective on the nature of this issue, on the wall and on reforming immigration. And then secondly, I'd like to talk to you about the man I worked for, Donald Trump, and his dedication to this issue that has brought us here today. So, very firstly, we need to understand what happened in the election of November 2016. On the one hand, we had an outsider, a total outsider, who owed nothing to this swamp. He didn't owe anything to the establishment on left and right, and that in part is why he won. On the other hand, we had a representative of an ideology who stated, and this is now out there, the transcript has been leaked, Hillary Clinton said in a speech to bankers that her vision as candidate for the highest office in the land, her vision is for a borderless hemisphere, meaning no borders from Canada all the way down to South America. If we have no borders in our hemisphere, then the word America ceases to have meaning. There is no America left. We are a nation of tradition, of culture, of values, of founding principles. If we have no borders, we cease to exist. So that was the stakes of the election. And thanks to the good Lord, the right candidate won. Now, my perspective as a legal immigrant is a very simple one. And I know the liberals and the radicals will not agree, but that's okay. Nobody has a right to be an American. I'm sorry, you don't. The idea that if they wanted to, 7 million people could come here, walk across the border illegally, and then suddenly, by magic, they become Americans, wrong. Wrong. You get to be an American if you believe in the principles upon which this nation was founded, irrespective of your ethnic background, irrespective of your skin color, irrespective of your gender, but you must agree to and buy into our common cultural Judeo-Christian heritage. Beyond that, it is very clear in the US Constitution that one person and one person alone gets to decide if you are a threat to this nation and are allowed in. And it's not the Supreme Court, it's not the Democrat Party in opposition, it's not a judge in Hawaii. The one person who constitutionally has the right to define whether or not you are a threat to all Americans is the incumbent president. And that is why, despite all the garbage fake news about the totalitarian and despotic tendencies of the current president, we began on the first weekend of the administration, myself, Kellyanne, defending the travel ban. When it was challenged legally, we went through all the required processes until what? Until the highest court in the land agreed. The president decides if you are a threat, and it is his prerogative and his right alone. What do you need to know about that man? First things first, I want you all, those here, those watching, those listening, I want you to have faith. Have faith. Stand tall. Never give up. Why? Because Donald J. Trump will never give up and he will never betray you. Let me share with you an example of this man's intestinal fortitude, his moral courage, which doesn't have to do with the border, but it has to do with principle. I can share with you because a cabinet member told me, I'm not allowed to say which cabinet member, but a cabinet member shared a story with me that tells you everything you need to know about Donald Trump. The cabinet was debating the issue of recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And the majority of the cabinet told the president, don't do it, sir. Don't move the embassy. Don't recognize Jerusalem. In fact, and this is shocking, only 3 cabinet members supported the president. Only 3. So they were in the minority. What was Donald Trump's response? He said, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the eternal state, the eternal Jewish state, is something I promised the American people. I promised our friends in Israel, our closest allies in the Middle East. Oh, and by the way, it's the right thing to do, so I'm doing it. He knows that building the wall is the right thing to do. Reforming our utterly decrepit and bankrupt immigration system is the right thing to do. The idea, just two examples, the idea that when you apply for a visa to come to America, the Obama administration forbade the State Department from looking at your social media posts because that was personal information. I mean, that's insanity. That's not even an SNL skit. It's suicide. Your Facebook postings are not private. They're a door into your mind, into what you believe in. And that is how two people entered the United States legally and then proceeded to kill their 14 co-workers at a Christmas party in San Bernardino. Because that woman's social book postings were not looked at before she applied for a visa, and so we had a jihadi attack at a Christmas party. Likewise, the idea of catch and release, that we can have individuals who are arrested, convicted 5, 6, 7 times and then allowed into our communities, is likewise national suicide. And that is why these policies are being changed and will be changed. So lastly, I have no right to demand this, but I will tell you what I will do. I'm a Christian, but I don't have it in my heart to forgive these people. I'm not that great a man. But I also will never forget the names of these individuals, whether it's Molly Tibbetts, whether it's Kate Steinle. You choose whether you forgive, but we must never forget, and we will never give up. Likewise, Donald J. Trump will never give up on you, because this is a house. America is a home. And when you go to sleep at night, you lock the front door, not because you hate everything outside your home, but because you wish to protect your loved ones inside your home. The border is our front door, and Donald Trump is the only person who gets to hold the key. We will secure this home. We will not have sanctuaries for illegal criminals. We will have one sanctuary for all Americans and those who believe in America. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gorka. Thank you very much. You have to love Dr. Gorka's passion. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up and my chest stand out a little further. Our next speaker is Congressman Steve King of Iowa. Congressman Steve King has long been an advocate for the Angel families. I have much respect for Congressman King. He has met with Angel families numerous times, and while they are in D.C., and graciously welcomes them into his office. That in on its own is a blessing, and that's a man that takes action. He has stood up for a secure border, American safety, and Angel families are proud to have him speak at their launch rally. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press and media, Congressman Steve King.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today, to stand up and speak for our Angel families, for those that we have lost and those that we so sadly lament their loss. And for me, this goes back a ways. I would say I was a ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee here in Congress as far back as a dozen years ago. And even back then, that was when Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker, and we couldn't hold a hearing, an official one, so we held faux hearings. And I brought some of the Angel parents in to testify then before the full hearings that we had. And we did that for the purposes of press. We did that to send the message out to America. And it hit home for me. It hit home for me quite a few years ago when a friend of one of my employees was killed by an illegal alien out in Colorado, and I was friends of his parents. And I remember the tragedy, the way that crushed their family and crushed their lives, and how they tried to make sense out of that, how an illegal alien that never should have been setting foot in the first place on U.S. soil was left to roam freely, to work wherever he chose to do whatever he chose to do, to kill their firstborn and only son. And that brought it home for me. I also grew up in a law enforcement family, and my father drilled it into me. The rule of law is the rule of law, and you shall abide by the law. And if you don't like the law, you have two choices. You can lobby the legislature to change it, or you can run for office and do it yourself. Well, I took his advice in both cases, and I ran for office in the end, and we're still trying to fix these laws. But we're also trying to get the rule of law, the respect for it, restored in this country. The disrespect is why we have these tragedies here with these angel families. The disrespect for the law, the collaboration of local governments in particular, and not just turning a blind eye, but now moving legislation to declare. First we heard about sanctuary cities. When they first came out, they were an anomaly. And then they became replete across the countryside, and a number of them in my home state of Iowa. Then we heard about sanctuary counties, those jurisdictions that said, not only are we not going to assist in working to enforce immigration law, but we're going to defy the federal government's duty and obligation and defy the federal laws themselves. And so we had sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, and now we have a sanctuary state, California, a defiance of the sovereignty of the United States of America, and a defiance of the Constitution of the United States. And when a detainer goes out, when ICE wants to put a hold on someone who's been picked up by local law enforcement, and they say, we're not going to honor that detainer, even though it is law. This Congress granted the authority to the Department of Homeland Security to write the rules on how they might establish the detainer. We granted that authority to DHS, and they defy it anyway. And so the system of when people are picked up in the streets that are unlawfully here, every time they need to be handed over to ICE. And all local law enforcement needs to cooperate at every possible level. And it's always been that way. I grew up in a law enforcement family, as I said. I can't imagine city police not cooperating with county sheriffs, not cooperating with our highway patrol, not cooperating with our Department of Criminal Investigation, not cooperating with the FBI or DHS ICE. That chain of cooperation has been why we've had respect for the rule of law in America. We expect the law is going to be enforced. We expect all of these brave men and women that put on a uniform every day, risk their lives for us, to work and cooperate with each other without interference from some elected mayor or board of supervisors or governor and legislature that are undermining this rule of law. And the children that are of the angel parents that are here have been sacrificed on the altar of political correctness, cheap votes, and cheap labor. That's the price. And it's personal. I started out by telling you how it began to be personal for me. It's personal for me with a number of you here that I've gotten to know. And I know that Michelle knows, and I know that Marianne knows, that I have a pretty good collection, and it's a sad thing to have a collection of the bracelets for their children that have been sacrificed, as I said. And they hang on the antlers in my man cave. When I go down there in the morning for my time of meditation, I pray for you families. I pray for the souls of your children. And when I looked at the list of a number of these children that we are talking about here today, and it scrolled, their faces scrolled in front of me on a Twitter account, and it started out like this: Molly Tibbetts, Kate Steinle, Tessa Trenchett, Dominic Durden. When I saw just the first four names, I know the faces of their parents. This is personal. My jackets have been soaked with the tears of their parents, and I've shed tears for their parents. As I got down through that list, I realized I knew half of the parents on this list that was out. And that includes the parents of Sarah Root, who came to testify as well. And I'm going to talk about Scott, Sarah's father, who gave, I think, the most powerful testimony I've heard when he said, under testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, he said, an illegal alien killed our daughter. And he was bailed out of jail for less money than it took to bury her before we could have the funeral. And he left the country. He was out of the country before they could have the funeral. That's how bad this is. And so we have a whole series of things we need to do. Yes, build the wall. I've been for this wall for a long time. Last summer, we brought some immigration legislation to the floor of the House. These were all pieces of legislation that I authored. Kate's Law, we passed that in late June of last year. Sarah's Law, we passed that in late June of last year. We have the sanctuary city legislation that gives you standing to sue local government if they turn illegal alien criminals out on the street rather than turning them over to an ICE detainer. We passed that last summer too. All three of those bills passed the same day, and all of them are sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk right now waiting for action. We need to fund the wall. We need to pass this legislation. We need to get either mandatory E-Verify in place or the New IDEA Act, which brings the IRS in to enforce as well. And that's even better than New IDEA. But mostly we need these members of Congress to understand this is personal, it is human, it is tragic, it is foolish for a nation that should be planning its future and planning to have the very best combination of respect for the rule of law, a healthy economy, people that are safe in the streets, safe at school, comfortable in their homes, walking anywhere in America any time of the day or night, knowing that these gentlemen here and the folks that are with them are protecting us, and the people who look at them when they go down the street respect them and respect the rule of law. That's where America needs to go and where America needs to get. And we have to keep this message up. When you're here, every time you speak up, you make a difference. Your voice matters every time. Every prayer, every voice, every conversation. Not just in front of the television cameras, not just in a radio interview, but those matter more. But even across the coffee table or across the backyard fence, at work, at play, at church, wherever you are, don't let them up for air. Let them know this is personal, it matters, and each of these children here that we lament and pray for, there are hundreds and hundreds of them that we don't recognize. The graveyards across America are dotted with the deaths of thousands who have been killed at the hands of illegal aliens in America. Thousands. And that's a terrible loss. And so I ask you all to speak up to our members of Congress, speak up again and give our president support that he deserves. Speak up here today, and I'm going to keep my voice up in front, and you know that. And I'm going to keep my prayers up for all of you. And I have the opportunity now to introduce Michelle Root, who is the mother of Sarah Root. And Michelle is the mother of the most beautiful and intelligent, lovable young lady that any mother could ask for, a perfect 4.0 student at Bellevue University, just graduated the day before she was killed. And it breaks my heart to know this. When I saw that story, it crushed me just to see the story. Now you're going to hear from one of the most loving mothers there could possibly be, Michelle Root.
Hi, my name is Michelle Root, and as my great Congressman Steve King stated, my daughter Sarah Root was killed less than 24 hours after graduating from Bellevue University with a 4.0 in criminal investigations. She was on her way home after celebrating with friends, stopped at a stoplight on 33rd and L in Omaha, Nebraska, where she was rear-ended by Edwin Mejia, a 19-year-old illegal alien who came over at age 16 unaccompanied. His blood alcohol was .241. According to the black box in his truck, he was going 70 plus miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone when he rear-ended my daughter and killed her. She was considered brain dead. However, Sarah was an organ donor, so we had the opportunity to have her on life support for 4 additional days while we were waiting for the recipients of her organs to be in place. Edwin Mejia bonded out like Congressman King said, on Friday, February 5th, the day before we had my daughter's funeral, the judge, Jeffrey Marcuso from Omaha, Nebraska, set a bond of $50,000. He somehow paid $5,000 and fled. Now, he had warrants out for his arrest for failure to appear. However, those weren't taken into consideration when his bond was set. And in Nebraska, you do not have to secure the other $45,000. So all that was paid was $5,000. Sarah's life is worth much, much more than $5,000. So now he is still on the loose. We are still trying to find him to get justice for our daughter and to hope to prevent him from killing somebody else's family. Sarah's life mattered. Thank you guys for listening.
Before I introduce the next speaker, God's talking through me, so bear with me. It brought me back to when I was a New York City fireman, and I saw a lot of stuff, believe me. I saw a lot of stuff. And what you're hearing is real, okay? So if everyone that's watching on through those cameras, this is as real as life gets, okay? I was at Ground Zero on 9/11. It was horrible. But the worst thing I've ever seen as a fireman, we responded right outside my firehouse in Brooklyn, Sunset Park, 4th Avenue, 51st Street. My lieutenant came running in. There was an illegal alien mowed down. There was an 8-year-old girl and her 6-year-old brother were crossing the street. It was about 1 p.m., maybe 2. It was years ago, so the time is off. Anyway, an illegal alien, drunk, no driver's license, obviously, no insurance, hit the young girl, took her out of her brother's hand, dragged her underneath the car for a block, ended up outside our firehouse. We turned out, we flipped the car over. When I tell you this is real, this is real. What I saw that day was the most horrific thing I've ever seen. An 8-year-old girl, head twisted around, insides were outside of her body, a thin slick of blood, half a block long. I wrapped my turnout coat around her 6-year-old brother, and all he kept saying was, I want to go in the ambulance with my sister. There was no ambulance. That was another child lost to an illegal alien. I just had to get that out, because what we're talking about is real. Okay, we live in the greatest country in the world, and we're a family. We need to protect our family. Our next speaker, Miriam Mendoza of Arizona. She's co-founder of Sergeant Brandon Mendoza of Mesa, Arizona Police Department, who was killed by a repeat illegal alien, 3 times legal limit drunk and high on meth. In a head-on collision, her son was killed. On May 12th, 2014, my heart is out to you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, press and media, Miriam Mendoza.
Thank you all for coming and hearing Angel family stories. It's important that our fellow Americans know the magnitude of crimes that are being committed against Americans. It's being kept from you with the media and from our politicians. They don't want us to use the word illegal alien, and I will continue using those words because it indicates it's a person who's unlawfully present in our country, and that is exactly what every one of us have been affected by who are here today telling our stories. My son was an incredible man. He was one of 4 of my children. He knew from a very young age that he wanted to be a police officer and serve his community. And as he grew older, we spent a lot of time together going on vacation and just really having a really strong bond between him and I. But not only was it a loss to me as a mother and to his sister, she lost her brother, my daughter's here, it was a loss to the community because after my son died, the stories I heard of what my son was doing for his community absolutely stunned me because he was such a humble man and he never told me these stories. He had bought 3 bicycles for 3 grandchildren who were being raised by grandparents prior to his death. Mesa Police Department presented those bikes to those children the following Christmas after he was killed. He would spend his days off going and playing kickball with the children in the area that he worked, buying them ice cream and pizza and making sure that they understood the importance of an education. A young man who had just come out of jail told me, "Your son single-handedly saved my life. Nobody wanted anything to do with me because of my drug charges, but your son taught me my life means something and I can change my life and make it better. And he single-handedly saved my life. I wanted to kill myself." So these were the stories that really inspired me to do something not only for my community but for my country. And the other thing that catapulted me into all of this was after my son was killed, realizing the killer of my son was shown leniency in our courts and was just released back out onto our streets to end up ultimately killing my son. And it's a story you're going to hear a lot with these angel families. It's a repeat story of leniency shown in a court or not keeping track of what's going on with somebody who's committed previous heinous crimes in this country, and they don't keep them in custody. But more than that, we are reality and we are organic and we are telling our fellow Americans the truth. We do not have an agenda. We don't have a reason to lie. I'm not telling you I'm affiliated with either party. I am telling you as your fellow American that this is a problem. It's not a matter of if this is going to happen to you. It's when you are going to know somebody, a friend, a family member who's going to be affected by illegal crime in the future. It's inevitable. So, and I just want to end this saying, Brandon's life mattered, and this is why I'm doing this. And every one of my other angel family friends here, all of your children mattered. And thank you to all the speakers who are here supporting us. It means the world to us. Thank you.
This is powerful stuff. It's heart-wrenching. The stories that are being told it's basically a call to action for every American citizen. Change in this world, especially in this country, is never done from a bar stool or behind a computer screen. It's about taking action. Okay. Our next speaker, Congressman Buddy Carr of Georgia. Buddy is a representative of Georgia's 1st District. He's here to talk about legislation that he introduced called the Tax Identity Protection Act. It's very important legislation. I'm hoping everyone listens carefully. So without further ado, Congressman Buddy Carr of Georgia. Excuse me? Oh, he's not here. I'm sorry. Wasn't told. Excuse me. Okay. We have another angel family member about to speak. That's Cindy Scalf, Tennessee. Daughter Shira was killed by a drunk illegal in Tennessee in a head-on collision, March 16, 2017. The killer is still on the run. Let me just say this one more time. The killer is still on the run. An illegal alien, still on the run, more than likely still in this country. Anyway, without further ado, Cindy Scalf.
My grandson wants to speak first, if that's okay.
Sure.
He was in the accident with my daughter.
Wow. Make sure you lean into the microphones, okay?
Okay.
You got this.
My name is Randy Branham. I was in the car wreck with my mom, Shira Branham, on March 16th, 2017. We were on our way to my sister's softball game when an illegal alien, Alan Mogul, and I hit his head on. He was driving drunk. This was his 4th offense DUI. The crash killed my mom, and it critically injured me. And the scar broke her fingers. He also critically injured 2 of his own children and his girlfriend's son. Unfortunately, our sheriff's department didn't think it was necessary to arrest him while he was in the hospital. He has been on the run since 3 charges of child abuse and neglect, aggravated assault on me, and vehicle homicide, where he killed my mom. He was also on probation for his third offense, DUI, and out on bond for a deportation hearing. We need justice for my mom, Shira, and justice for all victims whose lives have been affected by illegal aliens. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
My name is Cindy Scalf, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my daughter because her voice has been silenced. She no longer has a voice. On March 16th, 2017, our world was turned upside down. Our lives forever changed, and we are permanently separated from our daughter, Shira Nicole Branham. At the age of 37, Shira was killed in a head-on collision by an illegal alien, Alan Jacob McGowan Anaya, in Washington County, Tennessee. Alan was intoxicated by more than twice the legal limit of alcohol consumption, and this was his fourth offense, DUI. He was on probation for his third offense. To add insult to injury, the sheriff refused the request of the DUI prosecutor at that time to arrest Alan McGowan while he was in the hospital, using the excuse of having nothing to hold him on until the BAC came back 3 weeks later. We are proposing a new law in Tennessee, Shira's Law, to go into effect, and with this law, police officers could obtain an e-warrant and carry a blood alcohol kit to get immediate results. This law would keep law enforcement in check and to do their duty and to stop affording criminals like Alan the chance to escape. Yesterday marked 77 weeks since our daughter's death, and McGowan has been on the run since. He left his wife and 3 children here for the U.S.-born tax-paying citizens to take care of. I have no problem with immigrants being here, but they need to go through the legal process of becoming a U.S. citizen if they're going to live and work here. Then when something as tragic and horrendous as Shira's story and our other Angel family story happens, our country can engage and act upon capturing the offender and bring them to justice. As it is now, our daughter's killer simply went back to his own country to live a life of freedom and could possibly be traveling back and forth between the 2 countries. He still gets to see and talk to his children. While living in torment, pain, and anguish on a daily basis, we have to wait till our own deaths to see our daughter again. We don't want any family member or any families to endure the suffering that we have to go through. Please support the construction of the wall and penalize those who employ illegals. Because remember, this could be you up here pleading for justice and protection of our country. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America.
I do hugs, brother. My heart's with you.
I'd like to say something just for a second.
No, absolutely. This is yours.
We're housing these people. Somebody's housing them. Somebody's working them. If they don't have a house to live in and they don't have a job, they ain't going to be here. And we need a wall, yeah, but we also need to do something to all these people that's just housing these people and working these people. I'm out here I do construction work, and I'm telling you, they've took over where I live in East Tennessee. And I don't know what else to say. This has really changed our lives. And I hope to God that something comes of this. Thank y'all.
If these testimonies aren't getting to you, I'd go look in the soul mirror. Our next speaker, Tim Foley of Arizona. Tim is the founder of Arizona Border Recon, which I love that on its own merit.
I do, brother. His mission with many men and women who volunteer their time in extremely hot desert southern Arizona. Lord knows that is hot. To provide intelligence to the public in matters relating to trafficking activity that originate from international border in Arizona. The time and dedication of these men and women are commended and appreciated. No question. No question. Their information is invaluable in the fight to secure our borders which need to be secure, 100% secure. Angel families are honored to have him, and we want to hear him to share his incredible information. With no further ado, Tim Foley, Arizona.
Thank you for having me here. I haven't lost anybody to what's going on, but I see what's happening every day. I had dinner last night with all the Angel moms, and it reinforced why we are down there. I started Arizona Border Recon 8 years ago. We've been called everything in the book. Racists, vigilantes, baby killers, whatever you want. Anything to disparage who we are and try to stop people from helping. We do everything according to the law. And 8 years later, I have over 200 volunteers that come from around the country. The majority of them are former law enforcement and military who've taken an oath to protect our country from foreign and domestic enemies. I went down there because of what I was hearing from the government and the media for years and years. And the first one was, they're coming and doing jobs Americans won't do. Well, just like the gentleman said a little earlier, I was in construction and they're taking it over. So that was a fallacy. So after 2008, I started going down to the border to see if what they were telling us, the other one, was, don't worry, it's safe and secure. When I got down there and saw what consisted of a border, I said, you've got to be kidding me. In Arizona, we have approximately 400 miles of border. 5% of our border has the fence that we call the media fence, that everybody loves to show. 85% of the border in Arizona is a 4-strand barbed wire fence. 10% of Arizona border, there's nothing. So you want to know why this continues? Because we do not have a border. We have a revolving door. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. What's happening behind us in that building is the definition of insanity. These people, you know, I mean, I got some numbers for you. I usually wing it because I've been there so long, I know what's going on. In my area, we try to cover 400 square miles of the Arizona border. I have over 75 cartel scout locations inside of Arizona. On my cameras and with my own eyes, I see MS-13 coming. I see meth, heroin, fentanyl. I see Middle Eastern guys being escorted to the border by armed cartel. And you know you're somebody of importance when you can have 8 guys with AK-47s with 10 30-round magazines strapped to their chest escorting you to the border. I try to give away these videos to every government agency I can think of. But because I'm not part of the government, they don't want to listen. I live there 24/7. And I've walked over 2,000 miles of trails. I know how they do it, where they come, how they get in. But here's a couple of numbers for you. between 2011 and 2017 in Texas alone, they picked up 217,000 criminal immigrants. Out of that, 173,000 of them were illegal immigrants that had criminal records. That between those committed over 600,000 crimes, which includes 12,000 homicides, 69,000 assaults, 6,200 sexual assaults, and it goes on. Right now, this year, we're averaging about 44,000 apprehensions a month on the southern border. We still have 2 months to go in the fiscal year. It's going to push us over 500,000 apprehensions, which is an increase of 57% from last year. So when you hear that, there's nothing but people coming for a better life, yeah, well, I'm sure that there's a few of them in there, but what we're seeing is, like I said, MS-13, cartel, gangbangers, guns, drugs, and, my question to the people in the building behind me is, the three agencies tasked with securing our border, DHS, ICE, and CBP, they have a combined budget of $51.1 billion a year, with over 280,000 employees. Now, with over 250,000 employees, with a 2,000-mile border, and a budget of $51.1 billion, why can't you get it done? I'll even make you an offer. You give me that $51 billion, I guarantee you I shut that border within less than 90 days to everything and anything. You won't even get a bunny rabbit across that border. But, it'll never happen because, remember, my organization is supposedly a racist organization, a vigilante. But what people don't know is, in our organization, we have people that have immigrated to this country. I have a man from Uruguay who is now a U.S. citizen who comes out to help protect his new country. I have one from Ghana. I have a female from El Salvador. They all come out to help protect their new country. And that's what we have to do. Everybody talks about building a wall. And everybody talks, I heard earlier, they're calling the border our front door. It's not our front door. It's our back window. When your friends come to visit you, they come to your front door and ring the doorbell and announce themselves. They don't wait until you're not home and climb through your back window and make themselves at home. The border is the back window, and these people are basically breaking and entering. And so we need to do something, stop the insanity. It's a privilege to know these ladies over here, but it's also sad that I have to know them under these conditions. It's like I said, it's insanity. Let's get it done. Do your job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Okay. I'm pleased to announce that Congressman Buddy Carter from Georgia was able to make it. A little late, but he's an action guy. So that's much appreciated in my book. Could have not shown up. Busy man. It felt strongly enough to get here. So Buddy's a representative of Georgia's 1st District. He's here to talk about legislation that he's introduced called the Tax Identity Protection Act. So without further ado, Congressman Buddy Carter.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and I want to begin by thanking the organizers of this event, because this is important. This is what your Capitol is about. This is what we're here for. to address issues that are important to you, just like this. I also want to address the families who are here who have lost loved ones. I want you to know just how sorry we are. I say that sincerely, and I mean it sincerely. We are sorry for your loss. But I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for continuing to fight this battle, continuing to be here, continuing to carry that message that is so vitally important. Your loved ones live on through this. I know you know that. You know, we had an experience in the state of Georgia, unfortunately, in Woodstock, Georgia, a 16-year-old in the year 2000, Dustin Inman, in the prime of his life, 16 years old, riding in a car with his family. The car was rear-ended. He was killed. His life ended at 16 years old. All that future ahead of him, and now it's gone. The police said it was an illegal immigrant, someone who was here, who was not supposed to be here, who caused that wreck. To this day, they have not found that person. As bad as it is, still no closure. Still no closure for the family. Because of this and because of other stories similar to this, it led me to look into what can we do legislatively? And what can I do? Albeit even a small part of what I can do. And what my staff and I found out is that the Inspector General for the Treasury Department discovered that there were up to 1.4 million illegal immigrants who had stolen Social Security numbers from American citizens here in America. And they were using those Social Security numbers. They were using it to pay taxes. They were using it to live here, to pretend like they were simply citizens here. They had stolen those numbers. Well, that's unacceptable. We approached the IRS about it. What are you doing about it? They acknowledge, yes, it's a problem. But we can't tell the difference between whether it's an illegal alien who has stolen this number or whether it's simply a mistake. That's what's so frustrating about Washington, D.C., the bureaucracy like that. So we decided to do something about it. And I introduced House Resolution 6333, the Tax Identity Protection Act, that will require the IRS to look at this, to develop formulas to where they can identify these people, where they can identify these stolen numbers. And they can do something instead of taking just a lackadaisical attitude that, oh, that's going to happen, and we don't know whether it's somebody who's stolen it or whether it's just a mistake. That's unacceptable. I know it's only a small thing. I know it's only a small part of it, but it takes small things, small parts, to make big parts. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a country of laws, and we have to follow those laws. And our departments, our agencies have to follow those laws. We're going to demand that the IRS do this, that they identify every last Social Security number that has been stolen, that's being used improperly, used illegally, that they identify those. H.R. 6333 will be part of that. Again, I want to thank the organizers here, but mostly I want to thank the family members. I want to thank you for carrying on, for continuing to believe in our country, continue to believe in your family members. God bless you all. God bless America.
It seems that every speaker says something that hits home. He mentioned the victim, whose name was Dustin. My son that I lost, his name was Dustin. And he's from the great state of Georgia. I spent a lot of time in Fort Gordon, Georgia in my military days. Anyway, our next speaker is Tim Foley of Arizona. Nope. There we go again. Our next speaker is Arlene Cohen Sudak of Maryland. Son Sander Cohen was killed on December 8th, 2017 on the side of the road in Maryland by an illegal alien who did not spend one day in jail. You lose a son, an illegal alien kills that son, and the illegal alien doesn't spend a day in jail. Just think about that for a minute. He's roaming the streets until his deportation date in 2019. So he's walking around the streets whistling Dixie until he is deported in 2019. He was charged a $280 fine. That is all. That to me boggles the mind. But without any further ado, here's Arlene Cohen Sudak.
Hello and good afternoon. My story about my son, the Deputy Chief Fire Marshal Sander Cohen and Captain of the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department, is also Marla Wolf, the widow of FBI Special Agent Carlos Wolf's story. They were killed together. My son began his career in service to his fellow Americans when he was 15 years old. He joined Civil Air Patrol, where he received the first of many citations bestowed upon him in his short lifetime. All were serving the citizens of the great state of Maryland. When he was killed, he was only 33 years old. Sanders supervised 12 Maryland fire marshals in the Department of Maryland State Police and was the commander of the Northeast region of Maryland. As a fire captain, he was mentor to many and a friend to all. There were 1,600 more people at his funeral, a wonderful testament to the impact his dedication and humor made on all who knew him. Thank you.
My husband, Carlos Wolf, was a supervisory special FBI agent who dedicated his life to make the United States and the countries of our allies a safer place. Carlos was born in Venezuela and came to the United States with his family when he was 8 years old. Carlos entered into the FBI at the young age of 25. He would jokingly tell me that he worked hard so that I could sleep safely at night. Carlos loved his job, and he worked very hard. Despite being so busy, he taught ESOL for many years because he wanted to help other Spanish families. He was loved by many, and I have received letters from around the world describing how Carlos's work saved lives and how his work directly and positively impacted other law enforcement agencies. On December 8th, 2017, my husband of 12 years and father of our 2 small children was killed by an illegal immigrant who had a long list of crimes previously committed. That fateful night of December 8th, Carlos was involved in a single vehicle crash. Arlene's son, Deputy Chief Fire Marshal Sander Cohen, came to Carlos's aid by stopping his personal vehicle to assist him. Both men were standing on the shoulder waiting for police to arrive when they were run over by Roberto Garza Palacios, an illegal who overstayed his visa since 2009. Palacios was not tested by the police or the hospital for alcohol or drugs. The state attorney's office told us that there was no probable cause. Dan Morse from the Washington Post summarizes Palacios' record in this way. On May 17, 2015, in Gaithersburg, Maryland, Garza Palacios was cited for negligent driving and not following traffic control signs. 12 days later, he got out of his car after driving onto a sidewalk, where he then smashed beer bottles and began slamming a construction tool into a light pole. Sorry. The filing said his blood alcohol level was 0.13, nearly 2 times the legal limit for driving. He was cited for drunken driving and numerous other offenses. Within the next week, Palacios allegedly used a steel bar to bash a window of a Dunkin' Donuts and windows of 16 cars and set a sofa on fire. In the driving places, Palacios pleaded guilty to negligent driving, not following traffic controls, and driving while impaired. He was fined a total of $330 and did not receive jail time. On other matters, he served about 4 months in jail. His charges drew the attention of federal immigration officials, who on August 3, 2015, requested that Montgomery County, Maryland, jail officials hold Palacios on a detainer so federal officials could assess whether to deport him. The request to hold him, jail officials said, was not honored because Montgomery County laws had changed. In April 2018, the Maryland State's Attorney issued negligent drivings to Palacios for killing Sander and Carlos. His sentence, a negligence charge that carries a $280 fine. Our families are outraged over the lenient charge and the lack of justice. Finally, on May 3rd, ICE arrested him. Bail was set at $30,000. However, when he appeared before the judge, his bail was reduced to $15,000. Bail was paid, and now he is free, and his next deportation hearing is not until March of 2019. When you turn on the news, you see the outrage over immigrant families being temporarily separated. Where is that same outrage for our American families? We don't get to have Carlos and Sander for the rest of our lives. My children don't get to have their daddy. And I don't have my husband. Meanwhile, Palacios is free. He's free to enjoy his family and the laws of our country. He's free to enjoy all of that freedom. And if he commits a crime, then he has little or no consequence. Our laws in this country must be changed. Instead of the laws protecting law-abiding citizens, they are now protecting illegal aliens. How many lives will be lost before something is done to enforce our laws?
In closing, my message today is to all of the people who have crossed the border into our great United States of America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. Now that you are here, you have the same responsibilities that we do to keep your family safe from harm. The freedoms you came here to enjoy are not free. We Americans paid for them with our blood. If you only remember one thing, let it be this. You crossed the border, so can the bad people you fled from in your home country. The bad people who wanted to harm you at home will come here and harm you too. So, when politicians ask you to vote for them, make sure you know what they stand for. The sanctuary state of Maryland and the federal government did not protect two sworn law enforcement agents, Sander and Carlos, from a bad illegal. They sure aren't going to protect you. Be part of the solution. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Stay bold. Stay bold.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Of course. Anything I can do. A couple of more powerful stories that I hope are soaked in by everyone watching through those cameras. Our next speaker is Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, Maryland. I just want to say this as a first responder. I was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and my dad once told me when I was a young buck.
Let Sheriff Arpaio go first.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we're gonna have Sheriff Joe Arpaio speak. It's getting warm, and I just want to state that when I was growing up, my dad taught me at a young age. He said, if the police ever have to take you home, the last thing you have to worry about is the police. So without further ado, the one, the only, Sheriff Joe
Thank you. I just haven't been to bed for 2 nights flying around Kentucky and on those airplanes, but I would not miss this for anything. Right, Mary? All right. Well, I have a hero. I said that a couple of months ago. It happens to be our president. Yeah. But you're a hero for what you've been doing. We went down to the border together, right? I don't know if she violated 2 laws or not, but she kind of stuck her foot into Mexico. And it was very easy. You had a little fence way down here. You didn't have to climb it. So that showed how easy it is to get into Mexico. I was worried about you. I wouldn't do that. That would put me in jail if I did it, but you got by with it. So anyway, thank you, and thank you for your group and what you've been doing and will continue to do. I heard the congressman mention passing a law on fake Social Security, if I heard him right. We've locked up thousands and thousands and thousands of people on these investigations on the workplace. 99, of course, everybody says all I do is lock up, workers, janitors. They forget to say 99% of the people we arrested have fake Social Security. Nobody talks about that. So I'm glad the congressman is trying to zero in on that situation. So I don't know how to say this. I'm very, my condolences go out for the latest victim. Remember the 20-year-old? Which, by the way, murder is a crime against the state. Remember that. So I was a little disappointed at the family, the way they said this is all politics. We made politics out of the death of that young girl. I'm not going to go further what they said, but it kind of made me sad. You know the president. I know the president. We know it is from his heart, has nothing to do with politics. Nothing to do with politics. But sometimes you have to talk about politics to get the politicians to do something. To do something. And I spent 50 years of my life all over the world fighting this problem, plus the drug traffic. Now, when you say build a wall, I wish some people would also, I know the president has said it, the wall is important for illegal immigration, but it's more important, you're not going to like this, but maybe you will, for all the drugs coming into our country. I was in Johnson County, Kentucky, talked to hundreds of school kids. They got the most serious drug problem in history in that small town. So we have to stop the drug traffic also from coming into our country. And I don't care if they build a wall up to Mars or the moon to keep the drugs out of this country. And a lot of the drug traffickers are connected to illegal immigration too. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, I have nothing against the media. I don't even know where you guys are from. I'm sure you're not from Phoenix. Maybe you are, or the border, I don't know. But I have they call me what do they call me, a publicity hound? That's okay, because if you can get the story out, it's important. So I wish the media, I'm not criticizing you guys, but I wish you would talk more about the victims, and those type of stories. You don't have to say, go back on how they were killed and so on, but do some nice stories about our victims and let the public know. You got the power of the press to put more to this issue. And so I would beg you to do that, because the public has to know the real story on what's going on illegal immigration. Some people say, well, other people are killing people. Okay, we had crime all over our country, vicious crime, but you have to understand one thing. If that illegal was not here, we wouldn't be talking about the victims. We got problems elsewhere, but why can't we stop at least the illegal immigration problem and erase that problem? But, you know, it's a big border. As I say, I spent 50 years on both sides. And I said something in that little high school that I just got back from Kentucky. And I said this, and after 50 years of fighting this problem, especially the drug problem, I remember when I was a young federal agent, narcotic agent, how do you solve the drug problem? Education, prevention, and put the dope peddlers in jail. They're still talking about that. Nothing changed in 50 years, and we have a more serious drug problem. Right now, killing our young people, killing our young people. So we got the drugs killing our young people, and we got the illegals killing your loved ones. But don't give up. Fight to the end. I don't know, I see the Capitol back there. I'm not going to criticize the politicians, but maybe under the leadership of our president, maybe they'll do something about this problem. And I hate to bring politics in, but let's face it, politics is involved in this problem. So I feel sorry for the victims. We should never forget the victims. Let's do this quite often. Keep sending that message out. And let's hope that we don't have more victims with illegal immigration. And it can be done. The greatest country in the world. And you're trying to tell me we can't stop this problem? I'm going to go back just, how much time do I have? Well, other people talk long. Where's the guy that's running this place? Hey.
You have all the
She says I have all the time in the world. Good. Good. I'm going to keep talking until the press leaves. I thought Phoenix was bad. This is awful. I served 3 times in Washington. But let me tell you a little story about how things can be done. I think the president is slowly getting there. But I remember G. Gordon Liddy. I don't know if you remember him, of Watergate fame. He and I ran an operation at the border called Intercept 1969. President Nixon said, we're going to do everything we can to stop the drugs from coming into our country, including take away their foreign aid. So 2 weeks. We actually didn't close the border, came pretty close, searched every car, backed it up to Mexico City. That sent a message. Mexico hated us. Just by chance, I took over as the director in Mexico and South America. How do I get the Mexicans on our side? Now, I love it when the president goes to see Putin and the Rocket Man and all that. I love it. You deal with your enemies. You go in the back room, light up a cigar. Well, he doesn't smoke. I don't know about what Putin does. So that's how you do it. So I had the Attorney General of Mexico over my house. And the first time he said he liked blueberry pie. So my wife of 61 years, I'm still eating blueberry pie, cooked blueberry pie for the Attorney General. And I was pretty sharp. I went to the PX and got some whiskey. So the point is, I got more done with whiskey and blueberry pie than the big stick. So that's how you do it. I see the president is trying to make some good with the new president, but you never surrender. So we have to do something in Mexico to stop them from putting, drugs in our country. So once again, I'm going to talk about the media. You guys and gals are very important. Please start talking about the serious issue and the victims of illegal immigration. So, Marianne, I want to thank you again for your courage, and you avoided being arrested. Maybe they got a warrant for you anyway. I don't know, but I'm not a sheriff anymore. I can't do anything for you. But thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sheriff Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You'll always be America's sheriff, Sheriff Joe.
Sheriff Joe, here you go. Okay. We have a slight change in schedule here. I'm gonna call up another Angel family member, Marla Wolf, Maryland. Oh no, that was Carlos, right? Okay. Well, okay. What we're going to do is, well, as the microphones disappear, I'm going to introduce Sheriff Chuck Jenkins of Maryland, a 3-term Republican sheriff from Frederick County, Maryland. It's okay. It's okay. Over 28 years in law enforcement. Most of his career was spent investigating crimes against persons, including homicide, rape, and child sexual abuse. He's known as the People's Sheriff. Ranked by Fox News as one of the top 10 toughest sheriffs on illegal immigration. Thank you for that, Sheriff Jenkins. And Sheriff Jenkins, he was only second to Sheriff Joe Arpaio, so we're in good presence here. Anyway, without further ado, Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. Thank you, Sheriff.
Good morning. That's why I let him
Thank
go
you very
first.
much. Thank you so much for your service.
Good morning. I'm Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, Sheriff just 50 miles from this spot, and we are not a sanctuary county. First of all, I want to extend my sincere condolences to all the Angel families for your losses. I hope all of America's listening today. It's an honor for me to be here and speak on your behalf and to say just a few words about what I think is the impact of illegal immigration on America, every community, every county, simply because of the failures right here. And we have a term for that in the legal world. It's called deliberate indifference. Deliberate indifference, remember that. So my point here today is the need to maintain law and order in a nation that's built on the rule of law. You know, I know it's a very personal occasion for you families, but this needs to be brought into the public eye as often as we can so we don't forget, because you all never forget. Most of you families probably never had the chance to say goodbye to your sons, your daughters, your siblings, your parents, whatever the case may be. And I think I speak here today for all the sheriffs who came to Washington over the past couple days to meet with lawmakers and the presidents to discuss some of these problems. All of America has been done a great injustice by not enforcing our immigration laws, allowing our wide open borders, and being forced as a nation to tolerate lawlessness of illegal immigration. This issue is really threatening the fundamental stability of our laws in a civil society. All these offenders who are criminals, who are in our country illegally, no matter where they're from, their ages, their reason for being here, they have broken into our house. They've invaded our sovereign nation, and we can't allow the invasion to continue. You've heard some stories today. You're going to hear more family members who were killed in shootings, intentional and otherwise, brutal beatings, horrific crashes, gang-related crimes of violence, both in our border states and in the interior of the country. All of this is a part of the consequence and impact of illegal crime in America. Not one single death should ever have occurred, not one. There's no reason for these acts to have occurred because the criminal alien offenders should have never been in this country. And I'm not going to say much about it, but the most recent event, the story, the needless death of 20-year-old Molly Tibbetts, beautiful young woman from Iowa State, and it hits home with me because I've got a 20-year-old daughter in college. I won't say where, but so that rings close to me. You know, in some of the Angel family tragedies, the alien involved in the act causing the death have been encountered on entry by the Border Patrol or local law enforcement prior to the event and should never have been on the street after that encounter. In many cases, criminal aliens were intentionally released from custody from our jails to commit acts that killed those Americans. You know, this is the sickening result of sanctuary policies. They're in place in many jurisdictions because what the politicians are saying is very simply this. We are saying we are not enforcing the law because the people that are in the country illegally are more important than our own citizens. For some reason, those elected officials supporting sanctuary policies are more concerned about the growing populations of illegal aliens for their vote than the safety and welfare of Americans. There's really no other plausible reason or excuse for that. Sanctuary policies have to end, and President Trump, with the help of Congress, several members here today, the Department of Justice, and pressure from you, the American people, can and will make this happen. After meeting at the White House roundtable just 2 days ago and President Trump's staff, I'm very confident we can make real progress on border security and interior enforcement. In addition to the families who have lost members, there's thousands of families every year in this country who are assaulted, raped, maimed, injured, involved in vehicle crashes, and otherwise victims of crimes, again, committed by people who don't belong in this country. More consequences of the tragic realities of illegal immigration in America. MS-13, other transnational criminal gangs have infiltrated our communities to commit violent crimes, both in the public sector, but the immigrant community, and to other Americans. Neighboring Maryland counties, just minutes from this spot, are ground zero for a rapidly increasing MS-13 gangs and gang crime. This, again, the direct result of open borders, DACA, and simply not enforcing the law. Think about the 50,000 plus heroin opioid-related deaths in the United States last year. We can cite one of the causes, main causes, for a large percentage of these deaths as being the open borders and people crossing our borders transporting illegal drugs. Open borders have allowed the cartels to push through massive quantities of illegal drugs, criminal gang members, and humans being trafficked by criminals placed into servitude in our country in both prostitution and other legal enterprises. Folks, we are the only nation in the civilized world that does not enforce our own borders. The cartels are spreading death and violence undeterred by the law. Every single county, every single community in this nation is impacted by open borders and in essence becoming a border county. 10 years ago, I came down to Washington, I think as a matter of fact, Congressman King's committee, and testified that the cost of doing nothing about illegal immigration would be enormous. Well, here we are today. We see that cost measured in human, emotional pain and suffering and human loss to American families. Local and state law enforcement deal every day with crimes committed by illegal aliens who have no right being in the United States. In the majority of the cases, hands of law enforcement are tied because of politics and the blatant refusal of local, city, county, and state governments to work with or cooperate whatsoever with ICE. I can make an argument every single day to you that working with ICE is no different than cooperating with the FBI, the ATF, U.S. Marshals, or any other federal law enforcement agency. At some point, and I say that point is right now, that we start to show real concern about the rights of Americans to be safe in your homes, your communities, and on our streets. Your rights absolutely, absolutely trump the rights of persons coming into this country illegally. It seems that Americans who are victims of illegal crime don't have rights, recourse, or due process. That's the real injustice here. Where is the equity for Americans? In Frederick County, Maryland, we have a great place to live with one of the lowest serious crime rates in the entire region. In neighboring counties just south of Frederick, we have transnational criminal gang crime is on the increase in large numbers. We don't have the sad misfortune of being home to an Angel family. Is that fortune, is it fate, or in part due to the fact that we enforce our law in Frederick County and work closely with ICE and Homeland Security to protect our community? Our partnership very simply does not allow illegal aliens who commit crimes to be released back onto our streets to commit more and more serious crimes. I got a solution here of six very simple steps, all in accordance with existing law. We don't need reform. We don't need new laws. Everything I'm going to say here is in accordance with current law and the Constitution. Effectively secure and completely close our borders. We have the right to do that. That man in the White House can protect us. Allow Customs and Border Patrol to aggressively enforce the law at our border and expedite removals. Allow ICE, with the help of state and local law enforcement, to enforce our immigration laws in the interior of the country. Increase the number of federal immigration judges to reduce the wait time for immigration removal hearings and to reduce the backlog of cases, and we can expedite removals of criminal aliens. End DACA. Because, folks, I can tell you there's a direct nexus to DACA and the increase in criminal gang crime in the United States. It's an umbrella of unlawful protection. I think at some point in the near future, we're going to look back at this point in time over the past few years, maybe the decade, and say our failure to protect you, the Americans, is going to have been one of the great American tragedies in this country. I believe that right now, under this president, with his congressional leaders, many are here today, several are here, is our best chance to repoint that needle and accomplish change in border security, immigration policy, and enforcement that's in the best interest of you, the American people. I want to urge, ask, and really make an appeal to every sheriff in this country to stand with me in this mission to enforce the rule of law and protect Americans from becoming victims of illegal crime in America. This really is all about public safety and the securing of this country. So I mean, two more things and I'm done here. So I really get frustrated when I hear anyone say that, you know, these tragic deaths could have or would have happened anyway, or that anyone could have committed that crime, almost like it was a fate, almost like it was destiny or a predetermined, inevitable course of action, events beyond our control. That's not the case at all, folks. These families are victims. The violent acts occurred and American lives were lost because we have allowed an unlawful set of circumstances to exist in America, placing you at unnecessary risk. I think if we all move forward collectively with the support of the American public, which certainly is there, we all know it's there, we can avoid and deter more senseless deaths of Americans. The next time we meet, and I hope it's soon, with the Angel families, there will be no more names to add to the list. And this is exactly how we can honor you here today, is to move forward and change these laws. So God bless each and every one of you. It's been an honor to be a part of this. Thank you.
I'm honored and to introduce our next speaker. Sound is not on, really. Thank God I'm not a politician, because politicians need the sound up. Somebody unplugged something. Well, this is battery operated. It's dead? Okay. Well, I can speak loud. I'm from Brooklyn. Anyway, the next speaker, Majority Whip Steve Scalise, represents Louisiana's 1st District as the House Representatives Majority Whip. Many of us continue to say our prayers. Is a hero, a fighter, who just hopped out of a Suburban because he felt strong enough that he had to get here. Speaks volume of the man that he is. He's also chairman of the Conservative House Republican Study Committee. Without further ado, Majority Whip Steve Scalise.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you for coming out and for what this whole gathering is about, what Angel families stand for. It's about getting back to rule of law. It's about securing America's border. It's about standing up with those families and praying with those families who have experienced tragedies. And Sheriff, for you and for all of our members of law enforcement, I thank you for your service.
I would not be here today without the brave, heroic actions of law enforcement. The men and women in the United States Capitol Police, David Bailey and Crystal Griner, who risked their life to save mine and so many others, and what you do every day on the front lines, you and the other officers that are here. It's you who are keeping us safe in our communities. And too often the laws of this country prevent you from doing your jobs properly, the way you want, the way you were elected. Our communities just want to be safe. We ought to have laws that not only allow but support law enforcement in their efforts to keep our country safe. And too often we've seen the breakdowns, the loopholes in our immigration laws that don't allow our country to get to that rule of law, that border security that President Trump has made such a hallmark of not only his campaign but of his administration. I'm proud to work with President Trump as we try to secure our border and get back to a system of immigration that respects the great history of this country, a history of immigrants who came here legally to be part of the American dream and to respect the laws of this great nation. And so when we see these breakdowns, we've got a couple of bills that are moving through Congress today. And I first want to give my prayers to Marianne Mendoza, who helped organize this, as well as Michelle Root, who lost their children to people who came here illegally and then killed their young kids. This shouldn't happen in America. And yet when you look at what happened with Michelle and her daughter Sarah, Sarah was killed by somebody who came here illegally, and then after they killed her, they were allowed to get out on bail. And of course, once they posted bail, we haven't seen them again. I'm a strong supporter of Sarah's Law, a bill by my colleague Steve King, which makes it clear that if somebody comes here illegally and commits a crime of bodily harm, that they're not going to be released. They're going to serve their time and then they're going to be sent back to whatever country they came here illegally from, because America is about rule of law and about opportunity and about the American dream. People that want to come here and seek those same opportunities that so many generations before have been able to experience. And when we don't get to rule of law, it just breaks down what works about our society. Let's keep in mind, America is the most generous country in the nation, in the world, when it comes to immigration. In America, we let more than 1 million people come to our country legally. No other nation is close to us. So for people who are saying this is about just closing our borders, it's not about that at all. It's about getting back to rule of law and securing our borders. Because there are countries who are sending people here to do us harm. Every year, ICE agents stop terrorists from coming into the United States illegally. Those ICE agents ought to be supported in doing their job to keep this country safe. And while it shouldn't even be a debate, unfortunately, there are people in this town that want to abolish ICE. Just think of how ludicrous of an idea that is. I mean, ICE agents alone, last year, ICE agents saved more than 900 kids, young children, from human trafficking and sexual assault. And yet there are people in this town who want to get rid of those ICE agents. They saved and stopped and prevented drug dealers from bringing in all kinds of opioids that are plaguing every community in this nation. And they want to get rid of those ICE agents. So while it's important that we reestablish rule of law and get back to a country that respects our borders like every other nation respects theirs, we also need to fix those loopholes that are preventing our Department of Homeland Security in instances that have already been cited by Secretary Nielsen, that make it hard for her to actually send somebody back to their country if they come here and commit violent crimes against American citizens. So let's get back to rule of law. Let's get back to a country where, if you look at the Statue of Freedom right behind me, all the things that are great about America, the openness in the people that we welcome to become part of the American dream. We're still that great, generous nation, but we're also a nation of laws. And we need to get back to rule of law as well. And unfortunately, we've gotten too far away from that. So I appreciate what y'all are doing to be here today. Again, I thank our law enforcement officers that are here, those brave men and women who are keeping our community safe. We need to stand behind them. We need to stand behind our ICE agents and get back to a country that secures our borders and secures our communities and our men and women who just want to be safe and go about their daily lives. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
No worries, brother. Then there were 3 mics. Our next speaker, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Arizona. Mark is Sheriff of the Pinal County of Arizona. He has participated in DUI task force details and gang suppression. He's investigated multiple drive-by shootings, drug cases, assault and aggravated assault cases, and homicides. He was given the Award of Excellence from Arizona Gang Investigators Association. Without further ado, Sheriff Mark Lamb.
I'm not going to take a lot of time today because this is truly about these families. I want to thank Mary Ann Mendoza for having me. I know she's over there. And I want to thank all the Angel families for having me speak today. It's truly an honor, and you truly are the heroes. I know we lost Sergeant Brandon Mendoza. He was a Mesa police officer, neighbor to our county, and that's always an impact when we lose a citizen, when we lose a police officer as well. So this is about you today. You know, in America, we've got something going on. It's called apathy. We've become very apathetic to things, and unless it affects us directly, like it's affected you people, these Angel families, we don't seem to care. And it's important that everybody understand that this is affecting every American family across this country. Almost 50% of American families are being affected by opioid and heroin use right now. In Arizona, 40% of all illegal drugs come across our border. We take this very serious. So if you're out there and you think that immigration does not affect you, you are wrong. We've heard from sheriffs and people all across this country who've been impacted by people who are here in this country legally. My jail is a 287G jail, which means we house, thank you, which means we work with ICE. So if you're charged on state charges, we're going to hold you and turn you over to ICE. Why? Because I want to protect our communities. 10% of my inmates in our jail are illegal. Nearly every one of them are on drug charges or charges related to the cartel. Folks, this impacts every single one of you, not just these families, not just everybody standing here today. This affects every American across this country. It's time we take a stand. We let our politicians know we want common sense reform, common sense results. God bless everybody. Let's get this done. I want to introduce a friend of mine, fellow sheriff out of Jackson County, Texas, another sheriff who deals with this, Sheriff A.J. Lauterbach.
Angel moms and dads. Angel moms and dad. Texas sheriffs stand and support you. Sheriffs across the land. These United States of America, the sheriffs in this country are on the move for rule of law. Not rule of men, rule of law. We stand with each and every one of the victims of illegal crime. We know what works in this country. We have programs that'll work, and we know that we lack the political will in Congress to get the things done. Sheriffs are prepared to take the necessary steps to try and propel Congress to move the ball forward, to get some things done, to rebuild our sovereignty of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Sheriff. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is another congressman from Arizona, state which is being spoken about often as it should today. He represents Arizona's 5th congressional district. Please welcome Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona.
I'm grateful to be with you, but I wish we didn't have to be here today. Thanks to Mary Ann Mendoza, Steve Runnebeck, and all the Angel families who've endured the unthinkable. because our government has done too little to protect this country. Too little to protect our sovereignty, and too little to protect our borders, and not enough to protect our friends and our families. And so we have victims of crimes which ought not to have been committed. When I ran with the notion of building a border wall, along with President Trump. I have argued for three things for my 14 years in the Arizona State Legislature and my 2 years now in Congress. Border security, and that border security begins, quite frankly, with a border wall, passed by Congress many years ago, but never funded. The second thing is internal enforcement of our immigration laws. And the third thing is removal of incentives to come and illegally and stay illegally in this country. Those three things have to happen. So, a few weeks ago, I introduced a bill. It's H.R. 6657, the Fund and Complete the Border Wall Act. The purpose of that is to keep a fundamental campaign promise by this president. And you remember, he was in a pack of 17 Republicans running. He was in the middle of the pack. But when he uttered those famous words, build the wall, within a few short days, he was number one, the front runner, and it carried him all the way into office. And it is the most fundamental promise that I made and that he made. And so this, what my bill does, and this is important to know, it starts and completes the construction of the entire border wall. It provides relief from regulatory burdens that are going to prevent it, that some people are hanging their hat on. They're talking about building a border wall, but they're saying we can't do it because of regulatory constraints. Mine takes care of those regulatory constraints. It restores the overtime pay and other pay to Border Patrol officers that was taken away under the previous administration. It restores funding for equipment that was depleted under the previous administration, and it funds the wall and those Border Patrol issues all off the general fund, meaning non-general fund monies. And it provides it in three ways. We give foreign aid to countries. They have people who cross the border illegally. We're going to reduce the amount of foreign aid to those countries by $2,000 for every illegal immigrant. Right now, there are literally hundreds of billions of dollars that walk out of our economy through remittance payments or transfer payments. South of our border exceeds $40 billion a year. We're going to charge people who are sending dollars out of our country a small fee. That will provide billions of dollars to pay for this wall on an annual basis. The third thing is, you might know the I-94 form. This is when people come into our country. Right now they pay $6. Everybody pays $6 to come into our country. That doesn't cover the cost, so we're going to electronic forms. We raised that to $25, and that money goes to pay for the wall and the Border Patrol equipment and manning the Border Patrol. I've been down to the border a lot. I grew up in southern Arizona, and I can tell you, we meet with Border Patrol agents, and what they tell me is very clear. They're willing to do their job. But the people who came up with the catch and release program actually are still as senior officials in Border Patrol today. They need to go. We need to clear them out. We need to let the Border Patrol do their job. And in so doing, I'm confident that we can get this wall done. But let me explain something. This bill of mine was assigned to 7 committees in Congress. Let me explain what that means. That means that somebody doesn't want this bill to pass. I am calling upon you. I need your help and support. Thank you. We need to let our fellow congressmen and women know. We need to let our leaders know this bill needs to move sooner rather than later. And it's a way to save lives. We need to control the border for people who are victimized by border criminals, people who bring illegal drugs here, human trafficking and smuggling, people who smuggle arms in or out of this country. And you know what? It's a humanitarian thing to do as well. If you want to come into this country and you go to the ports of entry, they will treat you, if you're asking for refugee status or asylum status or anything else, they're going to treat you in the way the law requires. Like I say, I'm from Arizona. It's not as humid as this, I can tell you that. But it's a lot hotter than this, and nobody should be out there in 120-degree weather trying to sneak into this country. It's not safe for them. They need to be going to the ports of entry. You build a border wall, they're going to start moving to the ports of entry, and we can take care of them as well. Again, I express my regrets for those who are here as families of victims. You have my support. I'll continue to support you. And with that, I need your support. Get this bill passed. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Biggs. We're going to hear from other stories. We're going to hear from some angel families. And it's getting hot. But you want to know something? It's not going to be too hot. This issue is too important. Anyway, next up is Sharon Miller. Yes, right here. Here, Sharon's here. Yeah, please. This is. I'm going to stand right. I'm going to stand right next to you, Sharon, because we.
I know this isn't professional. I'm just grabbing that.
We don't go right ahead. Anyway, if I could have your attention, please. The sheriffs, the police departments, Border Patrol, ICE, our great president, Congress, Senate, everything's good and great, and a lot of brave, bold individuals, and some that are weak. Standing next to me right now, is somebody so bold and so brave to come up and share her story. It's one that I promise you is going to pull on your heartstrings and hopefully cause all of us to take action. This is Sharon Miller. Sharon, this is hard for me to even say. Sharon was raped by 9 illegal aliens in California in 2001. Being a son who loves his mom, being a dad who loves his daughter, being a brother who loves his sisters, being a proud patriot who loves every female in this country and will defend every female in this country. These rapists, 9 illegal aliens, were never prosecuted for the crime in California. Go figure, California. And Sharon has the bravery and courage and is bold enough to share her story today. Please welcome Sharon Miller.
My name is Sharon Miller, and I'm a survivor. In December of 2001, I was living in Los Angeles. While I was waiting for a city bus to go Christmas shopping for my children, I was kidnapped at gunpoint, driven to another area of the city, where I was drugged and gang raped for 15 hours by a gang of illegal aliens. I was almost killed during this ordeal, and I'm blessed to have escaped alive. Unfortunately, my story is not rare. For example, in my home state now of Oregon, which is a sanctuary state and has been for 31 years. According to the Oregons for Immigration Reform, 1 in 15 prisoners incarcerated in Oregon are illegal aliens. 50% of those incarcerated are for sex crimes. Specifically, 172 are incarcerated for the crime of rape. That may not seem like many, but consider this, that at least 172 men, women, and children just in Oregon are suffering a lifetime of physical and emotional pain because of politics. Imagine, if you will, how many women and children are suffering the same pain throughout the United States. Note that I'm only talking about rape, and I should mention the far larger number of victims of assault, homicide, death of a loved one due to a violent crime by illegal aliens, both recently and historically. These victims, ordinary people like you and me, often not only have to suffer loss and abuse, but they face further verbal abuse, intimidation, and sometimes physical abuse when they simply try to prevent anyone else from suffering at the hands of these similar criminals by merely asking that existing immigration laws be enforced. So where does this hate come from? From groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, who labels an organization a hate group for promoting common sense immigration enforcement and legislation. Groups like the Innovative Law Labs of Oregon, who offer pro bono attorneys for illegal aliens charged with crimes, while victims often get little to no support of any kind. It comes from local, state, and even national groups who claim to be compassionate towards illegal aliens, but instead deliver hatred towards those who assert that no, not every person who jumps the border fence is somehow a potential valedictorian. Many also face a more subtle abuse, as my husband have through our church, who insist that illegal aliens are somehow all innocent and kindly souls, and that refusing to help them violate the law is somehow a sin. Worst of all, in Portland, Oregon, we have seen judges, the very people who are supposed to uphold the law, blatantly violate the law and let illegal aliens charged with serious crimes go. No ICE detainers, only to continue to reoffend. And I promise I'm almost done. It flies in the face of the very foundation of law enforcement, and it flies in the face of common sense, and it leaves the survivors who often suffer from PTSD and rape trauma syndrome with a never-ending fear of being violated again, with little to no faith in our society, in our law enforcement, or in our government. I'm standing here today because I want this to end. No more. I don't want to have to live with one eye over my shoulder when I walk down the street. I don't want anyone to have to suffer anything like I had to suffer. I just want our leaders to live up to their oaths of office and actually look out for citizens who place them in those positions. How many more people have to be violated, raped, killed before any of them actually do something to show some competency in their positions? How many of them are willing to actually serve the citizens of this nation instead of putting their priority towards those of other nations? I don't care where they came from. I don't care why they came. I don't care what they want to do when they get here. I want them, all of them, to live by the same laws that the rest of us do. And I know you're all really tired of hearing about crimes by illegal aliens and hearing from victims of crime by illegal aliens, but perhaps if our leaders actually do something, if they actually enforce even our basic laws instead of skirting them to win talking points, then maybe you'll stop hearing from us about it. And my life matters.
Buildings for them. You're far more brave than I can ever be. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We love you.
Good job, Sharon.
Those cameras that left made a big mistake. They made a big mistake. That's a problem. Sharon Miller, thank you so much. You just gave me my motivation for today. I promise you that. Agnes Gibney lost her son Ronald, who was shot to death by an illegal alien. 42702 in California. Again, California. The person is in prison with a release date of 2020. He's going to be released. He's going to see his family, probably commit more crimes. Just saying. Agnes' son Ronald's not coming back. Talk about family separation. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing Agnes' story. Agnes, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I don't think we need these over here because probably they're not working, but my name is Agnes Gibney. I am a legal immigrant. My family came to United States after they left Hungary during the revolution. They escaped from Hungary because of the oppression of the communism that took over the country, taking our civil liberties away from my family. The first time my parents tried to escape, they got caught, they got arrested. I mean, not arrested, they got caught, they took everything away from them, all their belongings, their money, their suitcase, everything. But luckily they didn't arrest my parents. And the following month, in January of 1957, my family went for the border again through the former Yugoslavia border, and we were successful. This time they put me asleep so I wouldn't wake up crying and get caught again like we did the first time. We stayed about 10 months in a refugee camp in Yugoslavia, but because my father was born there, they wanted us to stay, and my mother said, no, we're going to America. And they said, well, if you don't want to stay here, you're not going there either. And they refused to allow us to go to the American embassy. We were given 3 choices: South Africa, Austria, or Brazil. We ended up immigrating to Brazil, mind you, as stateless, if you have never heard that statement. That means you belong nowhere, because when my parents left Hungary, they took our citizenship away. When we immigrated to the United States, we lived in Brazil for 13 years and immigrated to the United States. It took us 13 years, but not 13 years of trying to immigrate to the United States. So the media don't even need to go there, that it takes way too long. That's why they crossed the border illegally, because the first 2 times the application lapsed, and the 3rd time my parents followed through, because they came to knock on our door and say, tomorrow is your last day. And within a short few months, after doing full background investigation, full medical exams, talking to neighbors about what type of character do we have, what a concept, we were allowed into the United States, again, as stateless. When we came here, we still belonged nowhere. But I honor this country, because this is the only citizenship I have. This is my home. And when I took the oath of citizenship in June of 1983, before I married my husband Mark, an American citizen, mind you, so nobody's gonna say, oh, you married an American citizen, that's why you got a green card. I took that oath very seriously to protect my country against foreign and domestic invaders, and this is what these are. They're invading our country. My only son, Ronald da Silva, my firstborn, was shot and killed by a gang member in El Monte, where my husband was the deputy chief of police. I never saw a man so broken, so smart, with so much education, so helpless, because he couldn't fix what happened to me. He just saw the devastation and saw my heart being ripped apart and having to bury my son. You see, this gang member had been deported before, and again, he returned. He has a long history of criminal activities on his rap sheet, from domestic violence, for burglaries, assaults, you name it. I don't care. he should have never been allowed back into our country. I come from California. That's the only state I've ever lived, and I'm ashamed to say it's a declared sanctuary state. We're fighting desperately with my friend Ben over here with FightSanctuaryState.com. Please visit our site. And I'm fighting with angel families because our voices need to be heard. We need to fight this insanity, because if California continues the way they're going, the rest of the nation is going to follow. And eventually, United States may turn into another communist country. Where am I going to go? This is my home, and I am not going to run scared because some thugs are allowed into our home, into our country, and we need to stand up. Every American citizen needs to take notice and talk to your politicians. I went to Kamala Harris, my senator, or should I say not my senator, because I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't talk to anybody in her office, but the receptionist turned her body sideways when I told her I'm one of the angel moms and my son was murdered. And I told her, I said, you know the sign you have by the door that dreamers are welcome? Shame on you. You need to take that down because that's offensive to American citizens. How about the dreams of American citizens? And I walked out, proud and tall, and I wanted to rip that sign away, but I walked out with dignity and respect. But we need to all stand up for our country and fight with every breath that we have, because I promise to you that I will fight until I take my last breath, because I am not going down, and somebody can kill me because I'm standing up. I fear for my daughters because this guy is coming out April 2nd of 2020, maybe even sooner the way California is going with early release. He has an ICE hold, which means nothing in California because they don't accept ICE holds. I'm trying to get a detainer on him, so they will have to be turned over to the federal government, but I don't know. I keep my hopes up because I don't want another family having to walk in my shoes. Yes, it's been 16 years. 16 years of pain and suffering. I cannot go over the border or travel anywhere to hug my son because what separates me permanently from my only son is 6 feet of dirt in a coffin. And nobody talks about this. The sisters, my daughter, my 2 daughters, his children, they were permanently separated. Let's fight for United States, and God bless this country. I love America. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
We do. I'd like to welcome up to the podium Aileen Smith of Colorado. Her son, her son Dimitri died 1 minute after an emergency C-section was performed because a repeat drunk illegal alien slammed into her and her husband's car while on vacation in New Mexico in June 2012. She was 7 months pregnant, and Dimitri was her first child. Please welcome Aileen Smith.
Thank you for coming in today and listening to our stories. We live this nightmare every day. So many of us in the parenting process can attest to sleepless nights with a new baby in the house. Let me tell you, if you think there are sleepless nights with a newborn, the nights are even worse without them. I was 7 months pregnant. My husband and I were traveling to our baby shower to celebrate the first baby born in my family in 25 years. When a 8-time drunk driving offender who had his license revoked for 12 years, and in that 12 years had 3 additional DWIs, remaining in the country here illegally in the aftermath of a sanctuary state, flipped a U-turn on the freeway 10 feet in front of my husband, noon on a Sunday. My side of the car made first impact at 70 miles an hour. I sustained 2 breaks to my sternum, mass internal bleeding. I shredded my kidneys, my uterine wall, my abdominal wall. The collision broke my water and caused me to go into labor while I was pinned inside my car. It took 4 men to pry my car door open and get me out to an ambulance. My son Dimitri was delivered by emergency C-section. He lived just 1 minute before dying due to massive head injury and bleeding on his brain. I woke from surgery to a team of doctors standing over me, and the first words that I spoke were asking about my son. To which, when I was informed that he had died, I tried to sit up and couldn't. I had 55 staples from stem to sternum. I asked to see my son, and when I finally got to hold my baby, he was already dead. He fit from elbow to fingertip in my arms. He had my husband's hair and chin. He had my nose. He was fully formed and perfect, but he was stolen from me, and Dimitri's future was stolen from the world. I will never get to know the color of his eyes, the sound of his voice. I will never know the rhythm of his walk echoing through the house. I will never get to dance at his wedding. I buried my son 2 days before my 26th birthday. He would have been 6 this year. Crime at the hands of illegal aliens is completely preventable. The man who hit us had been through the legal system 8 times. Strengthening our border security, ending sanctuary cities, and enforcing our immigration laws is an important step in seeing these kinds of crimes dramatically decrease here in America. The man who killed my son was deemed by a court of law to be too dangerous to drive on the roads of New Mexico, yet they were unwilling to question his immigration status. No parent should have to bury their children. What we experience is truly permanent separation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is another Angel family member, an Angel mom, Kathy Hall of Colorado. Her daughter Haley King was killed by an illegal alien in a hit-and-run accident in Arkansas on November 6, 2016. I'm just saying, I don't know how illegal aliens get their driver's license. It's really something that has to be looked at. But anyway, please welcome Kathy Hall to the podium.
Hi. I'd like to say that I'm happy to be here today, but I'm not. None of us should be here. My daughter was the youngest of 4 children. She was hard of hearing. She was riding passenger on the back of a scooter when an illegal man driving down the road hit them from behind going 71 in a 35. My daughter lived for about 6 hours. My husband and I had to make the choice to try to resuscitate her or to let her go. There was no chance of survival for her. You know, that's a decision no parent should ever have to make. 2 days later, they found the man who had hit my daughter. He was taken down to the jail. A bondsman was already waiting, and he was released within 2 hours and given the vehicle back. He was free for 17 months. There was a plea deal done. We had no choice in the plea deal. We had no choice in anything. We were not allowed to ask for restitution or anything to cover the expenses, although he was able to afford one of the better attorneys in town, pay for expert witnesses. He was fined $270. When we went to sentencing, this man had not been in jail for 17 months. He was sentenced that day when he pled guilty, and he was released to go home for another 2 weeks to get his affairs in order. We were devastated. I wish I would have had 2 more weeks with my child. This man should have never been given bond. He was not out on our streets legally, so why was he released back onto them to begin with? My husband and I have struggled to make it through every single day knowing what's happened. My husband was in the Army for 26 years and had retired. He's made the comment repeatedly that at least in a time of war, in a war zone, he knew who his enemy was. You know, for our own government to turn and try to protect the people that have harmed us and are here illegally is absolutely absurd. We need more than a wall. We need to fix the problems in our own judicial system to stop this. We cannot just put up a wall and expect everything to be better because it's so deep here. There is no help out there for victims because everything is different when it's an illegal who has committed the crime. You know, I am really hoping that our voices are heard and changes can be made. But it goes far beyond that wall, and people need to realize it. We were in small town Arkansas when this happened. It will happen anywhere. If you think that you're in a small town and it's not going to happen, you're very wrong. When we had gone to the press and we spoke out, my daughter had had a child, a little girl. We were waiting to get into court at the time for custody of that child. 10 days after we had spoken out with the press, she was adopted to a family that was not family to us, or her at all. We are currently fighting to try to get her back home where she belongs with her family. There are some very good legislators out there that we are working with that are trying to help us. But you know, this problem goes well beyond just the outside influences. Every night when I'm missing my child and I can't stand the pain, this is what I have. This is what I have to cuddle and miss my child. This man will be out of jail in 2 years on parole. He was sentenced to 17 years, and he will serve 2 years of that time before he hopefully will be escorted home, but from what I'm hearing, that probably won't happen either. And I just hope that all of you remember when you go home tonight to hug your children.
Amen to that. Amen. We have 2 more speakers, and we're going to wrap up. 2 more stories that need to be told and need to be heard. From my second home, my home since 2007, is the great state of Florida, where I can promise you Florida is never going to be a sanctuary state, because when Congressman Ron DeSantis becomes our governor, woohoo! And he will be our governor. Yes. And he's a fighter on Capitol Hill. And when Congressman Brian Mast wins his midterm election, Brian's another hero. We will never be a sanctuary state. So from the great state of Florida, I'm going to welcome Vicki Lyon. Her daughter Nikki was killed in Florida on November 17, 2001 by a drunk, cocaine-fueled illegal who ran into her car. Vicki has raised her 2 grandchildren who were also severely injured in that accident. That illegal spent 1 day in jail. A grandmother raising her grandchildren. Not 1 day in jail. Not 1 day in jail. I'm beyond words. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Vicki Lyon. You're more than welcome. Don't worry about anything. You do your thing.
I can show you a picture of my daughter. No.
No, right here.
big one.
Yup, here, I'll take this. You don't worry about anything. You do what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. On November 17th, 2001, my daughter Nikki was killed by an illegal alien. She was driving home from work where she got to work overtime. She was so happy because she was using this overtime to buy Christmas gifts for her children, ages 4 and 14 months. She left my house at 12:30 in the afternoon after picking the children up, and she was pronounced dead at 12:52, which was what, 22 minutes later. My grandchildren, as was said, was in the car. Brianna was 4 years old. She was dead at the scene. Thank God for some wonderful EMTs who decided to do what they call a snatch and grab. Brianna was already blue. Her brain was showing or seeing the light of day. The bones in her legs were sticking through her skin. She had a heart attack. She had a lacerated liver and was bleeding internally. Brandon was 14 months old. He was in a car seat, which saved his life. He had minor injuries, a bump on the head, bump on both of his knees, and where the seat belts held him, it just ripped the skin down to the meat, and it was awful looking, and it took weeks, probably 6 to 8 weeks for it to heal. Brianna both children were airlifted into Orlando Regional Medical Center, which is a 5-point trauma center, which is the best in the Central Florida. Brianna was rushed into emergency surgery to repair her skull, which was split from here all the way around. Many of you have seen her pictures. And she had, the next day, they were so concerned about the length of time she was in the operating room that they could not repair her leg. And also in a child that small, they don't stop the bleeding, which her liver was, she was bleeding internally, and they let the liver heal itself. It does regenerate in a small child. So she stayed 2 more days and then had surgery on her leg. And to this day, she has epilepsy. She still walks with a limp. But this child is amazing. She graduated high school with a 4.0. She got every award that the state of Tennessee could award her. She's in college for nursing, and she is just the strongest child you would ever hope to meet. I mean, she just has a tenacity about her that is amazing. My little Brandon, he's just turned 18 and graduated from high school, and he was an honor student. He was in ROTC for 4 years. He's getting ready to attend St. Leo's University, where after he finishes there, he hopes to have a career in the Navy in cyber technology. And I'm just amazed at how well these children are growing up and how well-rounded they are. The reason I waited so many years to come and speak about Nikki's tragedy was I wanted these children to be able to grow up in love and have a solid foundation of an education and what family they had left around them to love on them. I wanted them to be able to understand the death of their mother and what happened, and for them to give me the permission to share their story as well as their mother's, and as well Brianna's very graphic and brutal hospital pictures. The illegal alien that killed Nikki, he was drunk, he was high on cocaine, he was driving on the wrong side of the road, he had driven about 5 cars off prior to hitting Nikki head on. She had nowhere to go. He literally ran over my baby's body. Every bone in her body was crushed except her left hand. Her car door was about this big, where he hit her in a huge pickup truck, and she was in a little Honda. He was ejected from the truck. He had 2 broken legs. He was taken to the hospital where he was cared for. He needed rehabilitation to learn to walk. They put him in a rehab. His family come in the middle of the night and took him out. We have no idea where he is. We have no fingerprints. We have no pictures. The only thing we have is a blood alcohol level. And I blame, unfortunately, Florida Highway Patrol because they didn't want to deal with Mexico. I wish that we had the wonderful sheriffs that's been here today and law enforcement that's been here today and understands our problems and what we have gone through. And maybe this killer would not be at large. And he's probably back here in the States. Every year on the anniversary of Nikki's death, I call Florida Highway Patrol and I remind them they have to go to their archives to find the report on my daughter. Had I not squawked loud enough, or as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, they would not even have filed charges against him. They did and gave him a $10,000 bond, which means my daughter's life to the state of Florida was worth $1,000. $1,000 was what my daughter's life was worth, and plus what happened to my grandchildren. What people don't understand is, after we adopted our grandchildren, I spent years in Brianna's rehabilitation. She would have seizures. She would have nights where they were constant, maybe 200 a night. She had to be at doctors every day, and we lived about 2 hours away from Orlando, where I would have to take her some days 5 days a week. Please don't take it that was not a labor of love, because it was, and I would do it all over again for the health that she has today and what she is accomplishing in her life. But what happens is, what people don't understand is, after everybody leaves from the funeral and after everybody sends the balloons for the babies and brings a cupcake, you're there alone. You're there alone. You have the medical bills. You have the legal bills. You have the tragedy of all of it that still goes. My husband and I had to file bankruptcy. We lost our house. And people just don't understand how far-reaching this is. It will never, ever stop. This will follow my children and their children and their children, if God so allows it, the rest of our lives, as it will all of these angel families. I get so tired of hearing, oh, you're separating families, and they parade these little children in as, don't deport my mommy, don't deport my daddy. What about us? What about the permanent separation that we will have the rest of our life? What about our children and our grandchildren? My mother had a heart attack when she heard of Nikki's death. That was what happened. That was another situation that people don't understand. You know, you have to tell grandparents, you have to tell older people, these things happen. I also want to say, since I'm here with this backdrop, I became angry and I called everybody. I called the White House. I called DOJ. I called ICE. Now you got to remember, this is 17 years ago. I called every senator, every congressman in the state of Florida. I got a hold of Bill Nelson. After telling him the short version of what happened, he said to me, lady, what exactly would you like me to do about it? Okay, take my breath away. And I said, well, if it was your daughter, you would know what to do about it. And I hung up the phone. Then the word got back to the... Pardon?
And he's still in office.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to tell you. Yep. His son has probably been caught drunk driving 4 or 5 times. Has he spent one day in jail? No. Why? Because his daddy works right over here. That's exactly why. Now, if he kills somebody, then what? He gets away with it. He'll get away with it again because daddy will pull strings. But they didn't care about my daughter laying in a grave. They didn't care about my grandchildren. And they don't care about yours. Because it's all about money and votes. And I would like to say this about being permanently separated, going back to where they say, oh, you're going to deport our mommies and daddies and everything. They can stand at the Rio Grande and they can yell across, hi Mom, hi Dad. They can pick a phone up and they can call their children. Can you call Brandon? Can you call? Laura? Neither can I. And I would love to hear my daughter's voice one more time. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to thank you all for being here for us. We need every one of your help. We ask you to get the word out. Go to your politicians. Tell them your story. Show them your emotion. Don't be afraid to cry. They need to see this. They need to see how awful our separation is. It's permanent. It's forever. We will never see him here on this earth again. And I want to say we have such a wonderful president. He has stood with us while he was a candidate. He has embraced us. And all of the politicians that were here today, God bless every one of them for fighting for us. We thank them. All the sheriffs, thank you so much. And I want to say God bless everyone, and God bless this United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you so much. We're down to our last speaker. An angel mom, an angel family member. Laura Wilkerson. Her son Josh was brutally murdered by an illegal classmate. An illegal classmate. On November 16, 2010. The illegal is serving time for the crime. Please welcome Laura Wilkerson.
Thank you so much. My name is Laura Wilkerson and I live just outside of Houston, Texas, and I have 3 children. Our youngest son was Joshua. He was 18 years old. And I think I actually probably got the most justice out of any of the families that I know surrounding me. Thank you to Texas for that. So I'm just going to tell you what the killer said he did to my son from the witness stand. He testified, and I want to tell you what he said he did. He said his first thing was to hit Joshua in the face so hard that he wouldn't fight back. He would be blinded. And when he did, it crushed his nasal cavity and bones in his face. The next thing he did was take his knee and knee Joshua so hard in the stomach that it sliced his spleen in 2. The medical examiner said that was torture. It was very painful. The killer told us again that Joshua kept rolling around and wouldn't stop getting up. So he got a closet rod that was close to him and he beat Josh over the head with it so hard until the closet rod broke in 4 pieces. The last picture I saw at trial of Joshua, when he's got an eyebrow here and an eyebrow up here and his head's disfigured and broken, is something you don't want to see. The next thing he did, he said bloody bubbles would not stop coming out of Joshua's nose, so he strangled him. He would then release him and let him go to see if he was dead. Strangled him again. He did it over and over per the medical examiner. He couldn't tell me how many times. Finally, when the killer said Josh stopped breathing, he tied him up with rope, about 13 ropes around his neck, to his hands and feet and his back belt loop behind his back. He then hoisted Josh on his shoulder, put him in our truck, drove around town, bought $2 of gasoline, and then he put him in a field and set him on fire. The killer from the stand muttered over and over about in his country things were different in his country. He kept telling us his parents somehow had enough money to buy him a black belt in mixed martial arts. Joshua was 100 pounds. Other than his brother, he'd never been in a fight with anybody in his life. His intent that day was to kill someone. He had a girlfriend that he'd been accused of stalking, and she testified from the stand that he told her one day he would do exactly those things to somebody. He would watch them die. He would strangle them, beat them, torture them, and cut their fingers off. The only thing that he did not do to Joshua is cut his fingers off. He was proud of what he did. He didn't show an ounce of remorse. He kept saying his killing skills took over. His killing skills took over. He absolutely got off the stand and demonstrated on the district attorney just how he strangled Josh over and over. I sat there thinking those hands were the last thing Josh saw, and he felt around his throat. It's somewhere you do not want your family to be. We know our kids aren't coming back. Of course, it took us years to process that, to make it equal in our head and our hearts. We know they're not coming back. We don't want your family to be up here testifying to this. It absolutely destroys family. And we know who destroys families, and that's Satan. It's nothing from God. It's a destroyer of families, American families. We are not going to abolish ICE. We are not going to cater to illegal aliens before Americans. And we're going to keep pushing this narrative to tell you this happened to my family, it can happen to yours. We were a stay-at-home mom, a blue-collar, hard-working family, try to adhere to every letter of the law, and then along comes somebody from another country that shouldn't be here in the first place and just rips our littlest kid out and tortures them. I assure you, you don't want to have a story to tell. I want to say thank you to Marianne and Michelle for getting us all together today, and all the volunteers did such a good job. We are going to support our law enforcement. We will never abolish ICE, and we will keep our families at the forefront so your families do not have to be.
Not my family.
Absolutely. We just can't explain to you how much it devastates a family. You know, you look at around, I look at his siblings, and I can't fix them. I feel worthless. You know, everything you do as a mom is you fix your kids. You help them with what they did wrong or what they did right, and you help them. And when this happens, you look at them. And I remember my oldest son came home from the military to bury his little brother. After the funeral, I remember gathering all of us in the living room before I took Adam back to the airport, and I said, we're going to make it through this. You know, we're going to make it. Things are going to be okay, and we're going to make it. And I thought later, that's probably the first time I've ever lied to my kids in my life. I didn't know the next second if we were going to make it. What it does to you is you have to decide 10 times a day, I'm going to make this. And the next minute, you're like, no, I'm not. It's really a decision to live and to push forward and put one foot in front of the other. And it is painful. I don't want you to have to be there. Thank you for everyone that supports us. We appreciate your time, and Joshua's life mattered.
Yes. We love you. Americans over illegals. America first. America first.
We're going to close.
Yes.
We're going to close, and I'd like to say from a very grateful Army veteran, 9/11 first responder, dad who lost a child, I want to thank the Angel families for giving me the honor, the privilege to MC today. I want to thank everybody who stood here for 3 hours plus to listen to the stories that must be told over and over again until the people behind us take action. I want to thank you, brother. You stood here the whole time. I watch everything. That's how I was trained. Yeah, people that stay, people that stood holding signs, people that support the Angel families. The Angel families will be speaking tomorrow at the Mother of All rallies. Show up. I will show up. Angelfamilies.com. Visit the site, donate, help grow the movement. It's all about action from here. You have Angel families that are taking action through their pain, a pain I know all so well, a hole that I could only get filled from my God, to be honest with you, and from continuing a life of service. Angel families, life of service. And yes.
I want to say one more thing.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd just like to remind everybody that the law is what keeps this not racist, not hateful. It's not about what color you are or where you're from. The law is what keeps this across the board correct, and we need to keep that. Thank you.
Okay, and this is the last thing from me. Believe me, on social media, I've actually heard from people, you must be a racist. I ran into burning buildings for a living, and I promise you I didn't stand outside of a burning building and say, are they black, white, brown?
Right.
Are they Asian? Are they Mexican? Are they white, black, gay, straight? No. We're a family. We're American. America first. Until we clean our house, we cannot help others clean their house. Anyway, I want to thank everyone. If everyone could give a hand pitching up, cleaning up, I'm sure the Angel families would appreciate it. Count me in anytime you need me. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
No, I drank like two more. I drank 2 bottles of water. Well, I have 5 bottles of water. No, I'm fine.
Did you really?
No, but my headache's gone, which is a good. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.